Welcome back to another episode of Marvel News Desk, the official podcast of MCU Exchange, and your best place to keep up with all of the latest news, reviews, and speculation concerning the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As typical, I have with me today Rhiannon and Adam. Adam's right off going to the county fair. How was it, Adam? Any particular big pigs or anything that you saw this afternoon?
They were all pretty big. Yeah, they look the same. I can't tell the difference between them. So I'd be a very bad judge.
Today we're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit about the movie and TV connections and why they don't happen. If you did not see on Facebook the other day, Adam and Rhiannon and Jeremiah from the site all kind of sat down and did a Facebook Live thing. It was kind of cool. I was too late to get onto it, but I just trolled them from the sidelines instead. And it seems like you guys had a lot of questions about why there's not more TV and film crossovers. And we feel like we talked about it some, but I think we'll go a little more in depth today and why that happens. So that'll be our main conversation. But first, let's talk about the news. Yesterday, I was privileged enough to be at HASCON, the new convention for Hasbro toys. And they had brought in James Gunn. And there was a question and answer at the end, and James answered a few questions that told us some things about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He said that there would be, basically said there wasn't going to be any Vance Astro in the film. He didn't say that specifically, but he was asked by a fan if Vance would be in it, and his response was, "It's not looking good. I've already finished the treatment, and yeah, it's not looking good." So it seems like he's definitely not going to be in it. He also gave some hints that Rocket's origins might be changed. Earlier in the week, he also made some comments that make us pretty sure, if we weren't already, that May 1st will be the release date. May 1st, 2020 will be the release date for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Adam, I know you're kind of a Vance Astro enthusiast. Are you sad that he's not going to make it into the next Guardians movie?
I am a little bit. You know, you would think he would be the first one they introduced from the original Guardians team. So I'm not sure why they're not having him in there yet. You know, if it would be more of a spin-off Ravagers deal, or if they just don't plan on having Vance in the MCU at all. You know, he's the leader of the original Guardians, so I'm not sure what the deal is. There was some speculation that he kind of has some mutant background, so his rights might actually be at Fox, but I think that got debunked. So I'm not sure. I'm disappointed. You know, Vance is a really cool character in the comics, and I think he would be good on screen. So I'm bummed, but the way things are going, I mean, we'll probably get him sometime, you know, if his rights are at Marvel Studios, of course. Hopefully.
Yeah, I can tell you for sure his rights are at Marvel. It didn't make our article, but the question in the room was, do you guys have the rights to Vance and are you going to use him? And Gunn said, yes, we own the rights. They are not at Fox. So okay. Vance is very explicitly, it sounds like Gunn he didn't say this. It just sounded like he really wasn't all that interested in adding him, or it's just not part of kind of his plan. So, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of get that, you know, I don't know, he's not really a standout-ish character in the comics, you know, he's their leader, but he's not a talking raccoon or a tree, you know, he's not really a character that necessarily fits in Gunn's wheelhouse, I guess. He's kind of into the funkier stuff. I saw somewhere where he was explaining his decision behind including Mainframe and Krugar and characters like that, you know, so it's clear that it's not, I don't know, he doesn't stand out enough, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see where they take it, you know, especially if they come with an original Ravagers / original Guardians team spinoff, which will come before we know it, I would guess.
Yeah, I could see where Marvel also does not want Vance Astro because, like, one of his visual signatures is he's carrying Captain America's shield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just think that would be terribly confusing to, like, audiences, like, just general audiences going to the movie. Like, why is Captain America in this movie? And why are they calling him Vance? You know, like, I think that would be weird.
No, it would be weird, you know, and there's some time traveling stuff involved and stuff like that. But I mean, at the same time, if you want a really confusing character, I mean, look at Ogard, you know, Stallone's character. His comic origins are really twisted and confusing as well. So depends on how, you know, they treat the characters in the MCU. I highly doubt they're going to get into Starhawk's background in depth because it's absolutely confusing. So it'll be interesting to see how they treat these characters.
Rhiannon, did it ruin your day yesterday when you found out Vance Astro wasn't making it to Guardians 3?
Yeah, totally ruined it. I mean, I don't really even know who you're talking about. So there, on the fans that would be confused side, you can just put me right there.
Yeah, I figured as much. I honestly don't know the character a lick either, but I knew Adam cared about it. So, Lance Hunter is coming back to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we also heard that Jordan Preston has been cast for the show. Rhiannon, this is one I bet you have more of an opinion about. Are you happy to see Agent Hunter? I always forget. Nick Blood is his real name, right? So Lance Hunter is his show name?
Yeah.
Because I always feel like his real name sounds like a show name, and his show name sounds like a real name. But are you happy to see Hunter back on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
You know, this is one that there again, with S.H.I.E.L.D., I'm always happy to see returning characters because I don't have to be reintroduced to a character yet again. I think that's where season 3 I got really burnt out on S.H.I.E.L.D. So I was glad to see a character that I already know and I know their backstory. On the other hand, I totally had him mixed up with Lincoln because their names are so similar. I don't know. I totally had him mixed up with Lincoln, and I was like, oh my god, does this mean Ward can come back too? Because I knew that would make Adam so happy. But once I remembered that it was Hunter, as in Bobby and Hunter and the Most Wanted group, yeah, I'm pretty excited for them to bring him back. And I know fans are like, we want Bobby, but she has her new show coming out this fall. So I think they just created a big group of people that are hoping for Adrian Padalecki's new show to fail because they would like Bobby and Hunter to come back. So we'll see. That's a lot of negative energy to create.
Yeah, I felt like immediately when the news hit, like I saw like at least 5 comments between the website and Facebook and social media. They're like, all right, let the Orville fail. Let the Orville, like automatically people wanted another show to get canceled so we could have her back too.
Right.
No, I was pretty impartial to his character when he was on the show before. I know that it absolutely exploded on social. On Facebook, everyone was loving it. So I think it's a good thing for the show. It'll be interesting to see how he comes back and they don't have Bobby. So I'm really, really interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, if they have to write it in that him and Bobby have split up and the only reason for that is because they can't get her availability, I think there's going to be a lot of angry fans that are not going to like that plot. Like they're going to have to find some way why Hunter is like distanced from her, but he's still with her. Because I don't think they're going to like a breakup that's written in just for the sake of like actor schedules. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I can see how that that's probably going to end up what happens. I think they're the couple that's on again, off again, so I think they'll just say, this is one of the off periods. And if she comes back, they're back together. I could see it easily going that way.
All right, we got official confirmation. It was revealed a little while back that Disney is creating their own internet service for their programming that you would have to buy a subscription to, sort of like Netflix or Hulu. And at the time, there was questions about what would happen with Marvel films and whether or not they would be on this new service or not. And then there was some reports that Netflix was still negotiating, but we have heard officially now that these movies are definitely going over to the new Disney service. It should not affect any of the Netflix shows like Daredevil and The Defenders and all that stuff. But the situation you have currently where you get the Marvel movies on Netflix about 6 months after release is going to change. Rhiannon, is this enough? If it's just the movies, if there's not new content, if there's not TV shows, would the movies be enough to cause you to want to have mouse flicks or whatever they're going to call this thing? Or are you are you not interested if it's just the movies?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't sign up for it just for the movies. But I assume they'll be moving all of the Disney content there, and we'll all discover. I mean, I imagine things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will end up going there instead of Netflix. You know, that Disney will hold on to all of their properties as we move forward. And that could encourage me to sign up, not just for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I think over time we'll realize everything that is Disney. And I think it may prevent them from making Netflix venture type things in the future. So, I mean, no, I wouldn't sign up for it just for the movies. I'm sad that the movies are leaving. That Netflix deal, even though we've only had it for less than a year, Civil War's the first movie that we got on Netflix through that deal. It was such a convenient thing just to be like, oh, this is a Disney movie, it'll be on Netflix. And I don't have to get another subscription service. I don't have to go and look. You know, because for a long time, it's Iron Man is on Hulu, and this movie is on Stars, and this movie, yeah, it was just so nice. Okay, they're all on Netflix. I have Netflix. I can watch it. So I'm sad about that, but it won't be enough to make me sign up for their service. No.
I am in the same exact boat. I don't think I'll get it unless there's some sort of original content. I was trying to think back. I'm not sure if I've ever actually watched a Marvel movie on Netflix. I know I've watched some S.H.I.E.L.D. rewatches, but I'm in the camp that typically buys the Best Buy edition that comes with a DVD, Blu-ray, and digital copy. And that comes out far sooner than they hit Netflix by a couple months, I think. So, if it's just the movies, I mean, I don't watch Disney movies, and I'm not that big a Star Wars fan. So I don't think I'll end up getting it. But we'll see. I mean, I would guess at some point they want to do at least some sort of original content on there. So I guess we'll see what they decide to do with it.
Yeah, I think we'll buy it because we have kids, and, you know, if they keep the Disney and Pixar movies available, particularly, I mean, if they want to make a big splash, take all 52 or whatever it is, like, Disney animated classics, and make all of them available all the time, like, that would be huge, and we would get it just because it would have access to all those Disney movies for our kids.
Yeah.
I also would really like them to see, like, this has been a thing I've been on lately. My daughter loves to watch Clone Wars, which is like the animated Star Wars stuff that like fills in between movies. And it's kind of fun because it's almost like an anthology show. Like, they'll do a 2 or 3 episode arc on R2-D2, and then there'll be an episode on Yoda, and then there'll be a couple episodes on Obi-Wan, and then there'll be another really random adventure with a new character. And they kind of jump around and they fill in all the like seams between the films. And I would love an animated Marvel show that was like that. You know, like 3 episodes on what Black Widow did directly after leaving the hospital in Civil War. Or, you know, like what Falcon was up to investigate, like some of the adventures Falcon had trying to track down Bucky or something like that. Like, I'd love a show like that, particularly if it was the caliber that the Star Wars people have put into their cartoon shows they've done. And so there's something like that, I would definitely be buying the service for that.
Yeah, that'd be great, you know. I think Star Wars has that and Rebels that are both canon, and that's something that they're actually, I think CW's doing with the Arrowverse. I know they had like a Vixen mini series that was a cartoon, and then I think Constantine, they just ordered an animated season of Constantine as well that actually fits in with their Arrowverse canon. So that, I mean, it's doable. Other people are doing it, so it'd be really cool to see, you know, the House Ideas do it, and maybe then we'd finally see Darkhawk or something.
Well, and the really cool thing is that you can have great connection there because you just have to animate them and give voices to them. And also, because you're filling in the cracks between stuff that's already happened, the continuity issues aren't as hard because, like, you know what's on either side of it. And so you can, like, kind of fill it in and tell a story and even fix kind of things that are confusing. So Anyways, that's just a pipe dream I have. We'll see if it ever happens. We got Thor Ragnarok set visits this week. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in it. The things that I kind of thought were interesting, we heard that Thor has been spending time looking for the quote-unquote puppet master behind some of the events that have been going on Earth, and also mentioned that we might see the Midgard serpent. Out of all this set visit stuff, did you guys see anything particularly that kind of got your interest that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I think the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me is, again, some timeline stuff as well. You know, they went through, and I know I read a description of pretty much how the movie opens up, and it starts off with Thor battling Surtur. And I guess he kills him. Spoiler, by the way. But that doesn't fit in with what we've seen, because we see Hulk fighting Surtur as well. So somehow, if Surtur does die, he comes back. Somehow, I guess. I don't know. That's what I gathered from it. It's the set visit stuff. It's kind of a lot of different people saying the same thing, and I'm just trying to piece it all together.
It's funny, Rhiannon, you were talking this week about how working on this end of things like we do with like the website kind of changes your feelings about stuff and kind of changes your perception. I remember I used to be so geeked about when set visits would drop because I would get all these little nuggets. And now that I write for MCU Exchange, I feel like it's like, oh, yay, set visit, which means a lot of busy work for us, and they're going to tell us stuff that we already kind of know. You know, like, I feel like that's something that's totally changed in me since I started working on the site.
Right. That's where, like, yeah, because, like, the thing with the Hulk being in Hulk form for 2 years, I think that's pretty cool, and that's an awesome detail, but I feel like I've already heard it, and that we've known this, and I don't know if it was a rumor or if it's something that was in a previous interview, but it's a cool detail that came back out in the site visits. So yeah, I think that is a big deal, that just like we followed so much and we've seen so much detail that there are things that are still exciting to people, but we're so deep in it that maybe we've heard it, or we've heard it a slightly different way, or we've assumed it from what we've heard. And it does make it kind of hard to know what's exciting at this point and what's old news.
Yeah, I'll have this thing where somebody will be like, did we know that such and such a character was going to be in Infinity War? Is that new news? I'm excited. And I'm like, no, we found out about that back in March because I was working on my daughter's birthday cake and it was urgent news at the time and I had to stop and rush over and write this article for it. That's old, you know, like, it's just like a cynicism that has started to set in the longer I've been around this, you know, and I've only been doing this about a year for the website. So
and
it's kind of funny how that changes.
And we've already like ruined precious family memories. I feel awful. I feel at least once every couple of weeks like I need to write a letter to your wife, like apologizing for this.
No, she likes it. I'm a happier person when I have hobbies, and so she's very happy for me to do these things.
Well, good.
Also, one more news thing, kind of connected with what we're talking about with Netflix and the Disney streaming service. Jeph Loeb made some comments that we wrote up back on Labor Day that people really liked. We got lots of reads and clicks for it. Where Jeph Loeb basically just said that ABC is still like the central place where they want to go to make their TV shows, that ultimately the synergy between Marvel and ABC is such that they'll always kind of almost give ABC first preference, was kind of, I feel like, the thing he said. He said, of course, you'll have shows that won't fit tonally or whatever, but we always want to have stuff on ABC. At this point, does this matter? Like, when Marvel's developing a show, do you think ABC versus another network really matters? Or if the difference is big enough, they're just going to shop it somewhere else, I feel like. Like, does it bother you, or does it really make much difference to you where, what network one of these shows is on?
I mean, I know when you have a show on ABC that it's going to be a little more cookie cutter, a little more sharpened to impress the masses. I have issues, I think I've mentioned this before, like watching so much Netflix, because I really don't watch a lot of network TV except for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. when I go back and I watch network television, I get really shocked at like how much makeup there is and how perfect all the people are. And you're far more likely to have girls running in heels. You're far more likely to have teenagers with false eyelashes. And when you don't watch much of that, it really stands out to me. So there's going to be that type of stuff with it being on ABC. So, but I also feel like there is no world where ABC would have... I don't know if Daredevil would have ever even made it to the screen on ABC. I mean, we know Jessica Jones almost did, that it was in development for ABC for a while. And I think that would have been sad if we had gotten a very toned down Jessica Jones. It would have been difficult. But I also feel that there's hope that network television, you can have some edgy stuff there, I guess. So I don't know that I'm sad or that I'm upset that things go to ABC first, but I hope that ABC has learned to turn things down if it's too big a project for them. And hopefully with Disney behind it on all sides, they know, hey, we could do this here, but we'd like you to... I don't know, I'm losing faith in Jeph Loeb. The Inhumans has totally taken away my faith, because I would think in the past that if there was a show like Jessica Jones, he would pitch it to ABC and be like, hey, we want to give you first dibs, but I want you to know this show will only succeed if you allow it to push the boundaries. Or like if they pitch Daredevil, be like, this is a show where we plan to decapitate people with a car door. And if you're not comfortable going to that limit, we should probably go somewhere else. But I don't feel like... I feel that Loeb is more of a, hey, if you want the show, we'll make it work for you. And I just, thinking back on that, all the moments we would have lost if some of these Netflix shows had been on ABC instead.
See, I think I still believe in Loeb in this. I feel like with Inhumans and Daredevil, they're kind of two different questions. As far as like Daredevil, I agree with you that I don't want the tone of Daredevil watered down for ABC, but I don't think the issue with Inhumans is tone. Like, I didn't need the level of violence or profanity or whatever. Like, Inhumans doesn't need to be as violent as, say, Daredevil to kind of fit the property. The issue to me there was budget. So I definitely don't want to see them taking things that should be movies and pushing them onto ABC. But I still don't feel like... I don't feel like they've messed up a tone yet. Like, I don't think there's a show that I was like, oh, this tone is wrong. It should have been on a different network. Does that make sense? It's always a budget issue, not a tone issue.
Yeah. But we don't know what the tone of Inhumans could have been, or how, what it might have been if it had been allowed to be on a different network, because Daredevil was a low budget show too. And while it doesn't have the special effects and the makeup that you expect in Inhumans, it still feels like they did a lot more with less.
Shopping the shows to ABC first, I'm not sure what to think about that. I would prefer they kind of stick true to the properties, and choose the network that's willing to pick up that property, instead of giving a property to a network and having them do whatever with it, because one of the examples of that is once Cloak and Dagger was announced for Freeform, it might have just been me, but I was picturing like the tone of one of those Christmas movies with a talking dog of sorts, an ABC Family type show, and that's definitely not what we got in the teaser we got. The teaser blew my expectations. I wasn't expecting that tone and feel. It was darker and grittier, I guess you could say, so if Freeform's willing to do kind of darker show, obviously we're not going to see Wilson Fisk decapitate someone with a car door on Freeform, but it's still not all happy and cheery, at least with Cloak and Dagger. So yeah, I guess I'm just happy they have options. The more streaming platforms there are, I know we were talking on our Slack chat this week, I would guess sometime they go to Amazon. Amazon's spending a ridiculous amount of money for original content. I read an article this week that Amazon and Apple are both the front runners to buy the James Bond rights, film rights and stuff, which is crazy. You know, they're streaming services and they're competing with these film studios for an iconic character such as James Bond. So if they're going to spend billions of dollars on something like that, you know, they certainly have the money to pick up a Marvel property. So I guess the options are always out there. I mean, I like S.H.I.E.L.D. I haven't seen Inhumans yet, so I mean, if the property fits ABC, I just don't want them to take someone like Moon Knight, and if ABC's the only one to do it, you know, I'd rather them wait for a better opportunity and sticking a street level character like Moon Knight on ABC just so they can have the show.
It'll be interesting to see how it shakes down, particularly with a show we're hearing that's like a Jessica Jones-esque show. I don't have any idea what that means, and I don't know what that looks like on ABC. Like, it sounds like a watered-down version, you know, like, of Jessica Jones. But anyway, we'll see what happens. It's kind of interesting to see how all those pieces are moving. So, all right, let's go ahead and do some quick hit news. There's a few things here that have come through that I was going to mention on the show. You guys can tell me at the end of this if there's anything interesting about it to you. Nightwatch is apparently getting a movie. Sony is continuing to develop the Spider-Verse that no one cares about by going to a character with as much love as Nightwatch has. When I saw that was coming out, I had to remind myself if that was a Marvel property or not. Inhumans is their box office ended up being about 1.5 million domestic and another 1.1 international for a total of 2.6 million in IMAX. If you read different articles, like I've seen articles that are like Inhumans IMAX take was surprisingly good, and other people have said it's an incredible disappointment. And I don't know what to think about that. It made about as much or a little more than Game of Thrones. It did so on a lot more screens than Game of Thrones was on. But also Game of Thrones was the most popular show in America when that happened, and Inhumans is a brand new pilot that no one's ever heard of. So that's that. We also got some footage from Ant-Man and the Wasp today, showing a van flipping around, which suggests that we may see some more kind of Giant Man type action. Any of that interesting, guys?
After seeing that Nightwatch news, I can't tell you guys how little I am interested in what they're doing at Sony. You know, it's just like I have zero interest in that character, and I just read something right before I hopped on here where they actually announced a delay for the Venom movie. So who knows if Venom's even happening. You know, I think they pushed that back a few months. I think they were supposed to start pretty soon, I guess, or they were supposed to start in October, and now they postponed it. So yeah, I guess I'm not interested in anything Sony has to do until we find out if it's actually in the MCU or not.
Yeah, I'm starting to run through the characters from Spider-Man the Animated Series, and I'm waiting. I think the next one that needs to drop is his name Rocket Racer? The kid who's got like a jet-powered skateboard?
I have no idea.
Do you remember who I'm talking about? Okay, well, there's a Spider-Man character who's a kid with a skateboard with jets on it. And that's coming next. I promise you. That's going to be the 5th movie in this franchise. We're going to go from Venom to Silver and Black to Nightwatch to Rocket Racer. And then we're going to eventually get that Aunt May spy movie. It's going to happen. They have a young Aunt May. That's the whole reason they went with Marissa Tomei, is so they could do a Black Widow movie with Aunt May. So I don't know. It just, I don't understand
it's like they're trying to do stuff that Marvel's doing, you know? They're like, Marvel did Guardians, but I mean, before Guardians, we got all of the vanilla ice cream characters. You know, we got Cap, we got Iron Man, we got Hulk, we got Thor. Those are 4 characters everyone knows, and now they're trying to build this expansive universe and take some Z-list Marvel Comics character that 90s kids know about. You know, I don't think they know what they're doing. I'm pretty sure of it, actually.
I think when Amy Pascal said we brought on Marvel for Homecoming because we don't know what we're doing, they admitted that they don't know what they're doing. All right. One other news thing I was going to mention real quick. New York Comic-Con has put out their panels, and we're going to have an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panel, a Punisher panel, and a Runaways panel. The first 2 of those are going to be at Madison Square Garden Theater. Rhiannon and I are going to be there. Rhiannon, are you pretty stoked about the lineup we've got coming up for us?
I'm very stoked. I'm excited about the Runaways panel. They're introducing a lottery system for the Runaways panel, which you've looked into and I have not yet. So possibly that's one less line to wait in. I am not excited about the two big panels on Saturday, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Punisher, being at Madison Square Garden. For those that are familiar with cons and line waiting, it's Madison Square Garden goes by San Diego rules, where you get in first thing in the day and they don't clear the room during the day, so you may have to sit through a whole bunch of stuff. And between the two panels is a Star Trek panel, so there's a chance you could go into Punisher when the Trekkies leave if you don't want to sit there all day, but I'm not excited about that. But I'm really I'm getting more excited about New York Comic Con every day, hoping that my job doesn't take me away from the area before then. There's a chance that I'll have to go for work and I won't have any say about it and miss New York Comic Con. But so far, I'm going to be there and it's going to be awesome.
Well, let me tell you, when it comes to sitting through panels, Star Trek should be a joy compared to, I got paranoid about HASCON this weekend. And so I sat through a Transformers comics panel, and I also sat through a how we designed G.I. Joe figures in the early 1980s panel, just to make sure that I could be at the Marvel panels I needed to be at. And that was totally unnecessary. And yes, I know a whole lot more about the design process for G.I. Joes between 1981 and 1986 than any human really wants to know. So I don't think Star Trek should be any worse than that. But
yeah, I haven't looked at what the earlier panels are that day, but there's usually good stuff at Madison Square Garden on Saturday. And I got pretty lucky in San Diego. I just had to sit through things like Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead, which are all pretty high quality.
Usually at this point in the show, we do reviews. We obviously don't have any shows to review. I thought I'd real quick just talk about HasCon as a conference because it was kind of weird and new. And Hasbro was nice enough to give me a press pass, so I thought we'd talk about it on the podcast for just a minute. It was kind of a cool convention. Like it was, it's very different. They don't really know totally their audience yet, I don't think. They had lots of like moms and kids that were there for like My Little Pony, and they're clearly trying to make it a family friendly event for people that live in New England. They had comic stuff. I got to see Stan Lee live. I got to see James Gunn live. I also got to sit in the Marvel Legends panel. They also, though, had just random stuff, too. David Ortiz was there to, like, sign baseballs, and Flo Rida did a concert last night, apparently. So it was just kind of, like, weird and random, but it was kind of cool. I would say for comic fans, it's a good place to see whatever people they get. Like, they didn't get lots of comic people, but, like, I was 3 or 4 rows back from Stan Lee, and could have asked him a question if I'd wanted to. The room with James Gunn had maybe 100, 200 people in it, but it was pretty, I mean, as far as the James Gunn panel goes, it was pretty intimate, I thought. And so it was kind of cool. If you like the guest list next year, I think it's a good chance to see comic people up close. So,
okay, so James Gunn took one of the fans backstage after the panel. I mean, this guy, I've seen his YouTube videos, and Gunn said he almost Easter egg. I mean, did he ask him a question that, I mean, James was like, all right, we need to talk about it? Or, I mean, how did that process go? What was the Easter egg that's so close, or what was this cat's theory that's so close to actually unearthing the Easter egg in Guardians 1?
So here's what I can tell you. The guy's name is MT. He has a YouTube channel called Mastertainment. I met him after the panel, and it was kind of fun to just talk with him a little bit about what was like after he talked to Gunn. I kind of pulled him aside just so I could get to know him. He's actually local. I think he'd actually be fun to have on the pod maybe one day. But anyway, so as the panel started, before anything happened, James Gunn was like, MT's in the front row. He makes lots and lots of YouTube videos about my Easter egg, and he's gotten really close. And I just want to like shout out to
Yeah.
him for all the effort he's put in. Now, the thing about it is MT has done so many YouTube videos about the Easter egg and so many wrong ones that saying that he got close doesn't really help you, because you could have like, which one was close? I don't know if we know. But the cool thing is that when the panel was over, Gunn jumps up on the microphone. He goes, MT, come around here. I want to talk to you. And so like security like pushed him over to the side of the stage, and the two of them were like having a conversation. And when he got out, like I said, I pulled him aside to meet him, and I was like, did he talk to you? What did he tell you? And MT was pretty cool. He was like, yeah, it was great to talk to him. He's a really nice guy. He's like, I can't share anything he said. And so like now MT's like all over it again now to go find that Easter egg. So I thought it was really cool that like Gunn acknowledged his work and spent a moment to speak to him and took some pictures with him and stuff. Like, it was really cool to see him like that engaged sort of with the fan community. So, all right, cool. Let's go on to our main conversation. We're going to talk about film and TV crossovers. So we get this question a ton. I feel like it's maybe the most asked MCU question, and people ask us as if we know more about it. I don't know if we do, but people always want to know, why do we never see the TV shows and the movies crossover? So we just figured we'd go through those things. We'd talk about those things, our opinions on those things, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully this will be a good episode that, you know, if your friend asks you this question 6 months from now, you can still go back to and listen to this podcast and kind of fast forward to this part. Hopefully we'll do it well. So, Adam, Rhiannon, whoever wants to go, when somebody says, why are there not more TV and movie crossovers? What do you think is really at the core of why that doesn't happen?
I mean, as I said on the Q&A the other night, I think Clark Gregg summed it up great. 2016 San Diego Comic-Con, where he said, corporate bull. I mean, it's just when you have so many different entities, because when you look at like the Netflix series, it's not like Marvel owns that and they can do anything. It's that Netflix has contracts involved. ABC Studios has contracts involved. And when you go to share those characters, yes, they may have the rights to put those characters in the movies, but they need the cooperation of Netflix, of ABC Studios, of it has to fit into everybody's schedule, it has to work out. So I think that is the number one reason behind the scenes, though I feel like they could definitely go beyond that. I think the Marvel Studios movies, it's more likely to see a movie character in the TV shows, if the TV shows could afford it, like we did in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because there's less middlemen involved in the movies. But I think that's the number one reason.
Yeah, I mean, Marvel Studios and Marvel TV, I mean, they're two different business entities, you know. Just the logistics behind it would be a nightmare. You know, if we take a look at DC, let's look at the Arrowverse, for example. I mean, they have 4 shows, but all 4 shows actually film in the same exact physical location. So they just have to walk from studio to studio, you know, to appear in a different show. And that's not something we get here, you know. As you can tell, they've really gotten away from the it's all connected saying. But yeah, I'm not really holding out hopes for seeing Daisy Johnson in Infinity War. You know, I'm not holding out hopes to seeing Karnak in Infinity War, you know. In terms of crossovers, you know, I mean, if we do get more shows on ABC, maybe even Freeform, I think the Freeform Cloak and Day is filming in New Orleans, right? You know, so maybe ABC, I mean, if ABC eventually gets 3 or 4 shows, we might see crossovers with that. You know, the Arrowverse always, every year, has a huge crossover where their shows one week make a 4-show crossover special, you know, which is pretty cool. And that'd be cool to see between Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Inhumans, and the whatever new shows they're coming. But in terms of actually seeing Phil Coulson in another movie, we might see Phil in another movie because that's where he started. But any other characters, there's just too many logistics involved. There's the MCU is such an anomaly. There's, with the exception of something we probably can't even compare it to something like Star Trek or Star Wars, because this stuff's in so many different forms, so many different movies, so many different streaming services, networks, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's trying to model themselves after Marvel, and no one can do it. You have this universal monsterverse that might not even get off the ground because The Mummy flopped. You have whatever the hell WB's trying to do with DC. I'm not sure if they know either.
But that's really interesting, because WB and CW have made sure that they're not crossing over the movies and the TV shows.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if we hosted a DC podcast, we don't have to talk about this stuff, because they purposely have left the TV show separate, and then even left the Arrowverse separate from Fox and the Gotham verse or whatever, right? Like, they've carefully avoided this problem.
And that's probably, kudos to them for doing that. I mean, that's probably the way it should be. The movies cross over with the movies, the TV shows cross over with the TV shows. I mean, people understand the different continuities between that. No one's planning on going to Justice League in November and planning on seeing Stephen Amell there, Grant Gustin, and Justice League, because they know it's two separate universes. But technically, what we're getting is one shared universe, and I just think the expectations now, with as large as the cinematic universe is, I think the it's not really fair to expect to see these TV characters on the big screen anytime soon. Maybe the bigger characters, maybe Phil Coulson and Daisy Johnson or something of that nature, maybe, but I just don't see it happening anytime soon, if ever.
Yeah, and, I'm sure this is old news for a lot of our listeners, but if you're really confused about this, you also have to remember the personalities. I mean, I don't know any of these people personally, but this is all things that I've read online through a variety of sources of various reputability. But anyways, like, from what we can tell, the way this worked is, for a long time, Marvel was all under a guy named Ike Perlmutter. Perlmutter is weird from everything we hear. He's kind of a recluse. Like, there's only been like one picture of him taken by any photographer in the last 20 years. He is very cheap. There's all these stories about people going to Marvel press events, and there was a strict, like, one soda per, like, press person, like, rule. If you tried to get a second Diet Coke, you would be told no because it wasn't in the budget. Like, he's just a bizarre, kind of weird guy. And he was kind of in charge. He's a executive VP or something at Disney and Marvel. He's also a big friend of Donald Trump's. Obviously, you listeners can do with that what you will. But, like, this guy is there, and he's hard to work with, reportedly. And for a long time, Jeph Loeb and Kevin Feige were both underneath Perlmutter. And they kind of, I think, had to cooperate and work together because they were kind of like two siblings with the same parent, right? And so Dad tells us we have to get along, so we have to get along. And somewhere along the line there, basically Kevin Feige, from what we can tell, told Disney, if you want to keep me, I can't work for this guy anymore. This was all about the time Civil War was being put together, and I think a lot of the talk was that Perlmutter did not want to shell out $250 million to make it. And Kevin said, but we need all the actors there so we can have a true Civil War. And his response is like, oh, just use 2 or 3 of them and call it Civil War. People are too stupid to know the difference or something, like, just total disrespect to the fans. And Kevin basically went to Disney and said, I have to have control of these movies, and I have to have a budget where I can make the kind of movie people are expecting. And Disney said, well, you're our cash cow. You've made us literally billions and billions of dollars. Yeah, sure. And so there was this big shakeup, and basically Feige was emancipated from Perlmutter and put in charge of Marvel Studios. And Marvel Studios, I believe now Kevin Feige's only boss is Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. My understanding is that's about the only level above him. And so he's really more on par with Perlmutter now, whereas Jeph Loeb is still under Perlmutter's, he's his boss still. And so all this stuff is really hard and really weird. And, Feige, in order to work with TV, kind of has to work with Perlmutter, who apparently he doesn't like. And if I'm Jeph Loeb, I'm annoyed that I still, I'm stuck home with dad while he got to go off and go to college or whatever. This is not a great situation. And all that stuff plays into this. And it would not be human if it didn't play into it. And so yeah, I think that's all in there. Loeb also has a weird job in that he also works with properties that Feige can't work with. So like Legion and The Gifted are X-Men shows that Loeb is on, but the X-Men can't be connected at all to Marvel Studios. So Loeb exists in a slightly different sphere than Feige does. And anyway, that was very long and complicated, just to say that there's lots of these personalities, there's lots of these people, and the whole thing is very tenuous. And I think it would be far more difficult for these people to work together than we think. I don't think they're best friends, and I don't think that they hang out much. And I think that there's problems when that happens. Is that all sensible, or have I made a hash of all that story?
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, all of these folks have proven that they can do anything they put their mind to. So if they want if they want the movie characters to show up in Avengers Infinity War, I feel like they could make it happen. I feel like if Feige came to Loeb and was like, here is my vision. This is how I see it benefits the TV shows. This is how I see it benefits the movies. I think he and Loeb could work together to make it happen. I think there's enough pull from all of these shows. I think there's enough to be gained all around. And I think they could fit it in. Now, I used to think there was far more planning on the TV side than it turns out there really is. So maybe I'm wrong. But I'd like to dream that it's still possible.
So in our prep for the show, this came up a little bit, Rhiannon. You felt like the production timelines and stuff should allow for something like this? Well, and I kind of felt like it shouldn't. What are your thoughts as far as how that all works out? Because this is another major obstacle, is kind of how shows are produced versus how movies are produced.
Yeah, and that's, at first we were just calling it scheduling, as far as scheduling would allow. And I think a lot, this came up a lot, like with Josh Brolin being Thanos and being in the new Deadpool movie, and oh my gosh, how will he record both? And I think for a movie, you can, or even a TV show, you can have somebody show up for 3 days. Maybe the movie is filming for 6 months, but they can work it out so that person shows up for 3 days and has a big enough impact that it was worth them being there. I'm trying to think of a character that might have just been a little bit of a series, but as far as on the TV side. But on the movie side, like Sylvester Stallone being in Guardians, I wouldn't be surprised if I know we saw news of him being on set at some point, but I can't remember if it extended, if it came back. But he could have easily just had a week between 2 gigs that he came and was able to do that. And then maybe another couple days later in the filming where they fit in anything else. Yeah, they can make schedules work. They can film a little bit on a weekend. They can film, somebody can fly down, even if it was dead set the middle of Daredevil filming. I know Daredevil season 2, there was news that Charlie Cox had, or just rumors from people that hang out near set, that Charlie Cox was gone for a week. And around that time they were filming Civil War. So some of us got our hopes up that maybe Daredevil was going to show up in Civil War because he was gone from the Daredevil set for a week. So there's, even while they're filming their individual series, a chance for folks to go and be there. Now, the type of scheduling that I think you were talking about, and that I think I agree with, is timelines and continuity. Just the movies, what they are filming right now is a couple years in the future. We won't see it for a couple of years. So, if you've seen the Defenders right now, who knows when they made the decision that these characters would be where they are. So if they had filmed some of the Defenders in, say, Infinity War, but, Infinity War was still filmed after the Defenders was at least plotted out. But, who knows where Jessica Jones will be. So if they threw her in Infinity War this summer, while they were also filming Jessica Jones, they would need to take into account where she is at the end of the season. But still, I'm still arguing in my own side here. Because while it feels like TV happens so immediately, with these Netflix shows, they really aren't. They really know a good year ahead of time. And the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. still, they could write towards a point. They were building towards the Defenders in all of the other Netflix shows. So they could be building towards Infinity War in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. this year. We've thought that they could be building towards Infinity War, that they might know what's happening, that they know the season of Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. is ending where Infinity War picks up. I don't see any reason that the scheduling of these, it feels like the shows are so far in advance, that the movies are so far in advance and it would be so hard to coordinate, but I'm just not buying that excuse.
So,
am I making sense?
Yeah, but for me it's a writing thing, okay? Like, I'm trying to be sympathetic for the writers. And so let me give an example. Yesterday, Gunn had mentioned at the convention I was at that he has finished his treatment for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The way he works as a director is he has a very, very detailed 70-page long treatment with almost all of the scenes, all of the characters, a lot of the dialogue, major beats, all of that stuff is in. And so he knows what he wants for Guardians 3. Okay, Guardians 3 we think will come out in 2020. We're a little less than 3 years away. So let's say Gunn wants to put Phil Coulson in. He says, Coulson's going into space from what I hear on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I have a really great kind of storyline where he kind of is a new fish out of water into the Guardians world, right? That's bizarre. I don't think Gunn would ever want Agent Coulson on Guardians 3. But let's just, for argument's sake, say he wants that. Imagine being the writer currently in the writer's room at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you're told, listen, we need you to have a reasonable way that Phil Coulson will still be alive and will have these certain character attributes the same and not changed, and will be somewhere geographically where it makes sense for him to be in space over the length of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5, Season 6, and Season 7. So that it wraps. So we're going to tell you what you have to do with that character over the next 3 seasons of your show so that he pops out at the right place. And I just think that's really hard. And I think that's why the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the worst season. But anyway, go ahead, Rhiannon.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things on that. One, when I say a character showing up in the movies, I'm on the assumption that, I mean, I don't see it being a situation where, like, Phil Coulson is, we're never going to see the Phil Coulson interaction like he had on the Avengers now that he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But I feel like there could be a scene where you have a crowd of people and he happens to be one, and maybe he has a statement. And maybe if for some reason he's not available, there's a backup plan. If Phil's not available to be in the scene because maybe they don't even know if Clark Gregg would be available, then, the statement could be made by Nick Fury. Or the statement could be made by, we could introduce this character. Or Mariah Hill could come back and do this, I think, especially the way they plan these so far in advance, they have A, B, and C plans, or they're used to trying to substitute characters in. So I don't, so I'm with you on that. I don't feel that there's going to be like a movie plot where any of the TV characters come in and they have a very major role and it's extensive. But I do feel like a smaller role that could be substituted with other characters in that way, we could still see the television characters pop up. Now, as far as where they are, you know, I mean, Phil Coulson, so let's say, yeah, there is, Phil Coulson needs to be in space. That doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, the way TV shows are written and all the places they go and the ways they go there, it's not like they're hindering all of seasons 1, 2, and 3, or, you know, all 6, 7, 8. It would be just, you know, hey guys, you know, when you get to this point, I mean, they could be 2 episodes away and have some magic thing we haven't thought about zap Phil back into space and him just be like, oh no, not this again. I'm back in space. And be able to pop in and do whatever. And then it comes back to the normal TV. I don't feel like they would be as hamstrung as you're thinking. And yeah, I mean, I didn't see it as a big hindrance to season 1. But maybe it was. I haven't rewatched with that in mind and looking at it and thinking about what it was building to. So that might be an interesting thing to do. But I think writers are pretty creative, and I think giving them some boundaries like that gives them more reason to express, you know, to go towards their creativity. I mean, they're hamstrung by a bunch of other things no matter what. I mean, it's not unusual at all for the season to start off with the showrunner saying, okay, you know, I want to find a reason for this couple to get together by mid-season. I want to find a reason for them to be apart by this point. Or, you know, we want to find a way to incorporate this character. So incorporating some long-term goal might even just give them more direction.
Yeah, I think that speaks, though, to what kind of connections do we want? Like, Feige has gone on, like, kind of gone on record of, like, the idea that you would have a connection where, like, Peter would be running to school and he'd bump into Matt Murdock on the street. Like, that's the kind of connection Feige's explicitly stated, I don't want. Like, I don't care about that. That's too easy. It's too cheap. I don't think that's worthwhile. If we're going to have 2 characters, I want them to have some sort of substantive reason to be in the same place and some kind of interaction. And so I think there is kind of a debate there, because I totally agree with what you're saying about some of these things could be written in pretty easily and those boundaries could be dealt with. But I feel like, for example, when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Age of Ultron overlapped, where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was kind of building the new helicarrier, and there's like the one scene in Ultron where all of a sudden the helicarrier shows up with Nick Fury, and Fury's like, a friend of mine was building this or something, right? To like kind of reference back to Coulson. I feel like a lot of fans hated that. They felt like it was like a glib, quick reference, and it was kind of twisted storytelling, and it kind of was just Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just kind of bent over backwards to create a connection just for connection's sake, and it didn't feel authentic, and it didn't feel organic, and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, I agree with you that those kinds of connections can happen. I'm just curious if that would actually satisfy people. I'm kind of suspicious that if we had more like small TV movie crossover stuff, the kind of stuff that is possible without major writing issues, if people would get it and just not be happy when it was over with, you know, like that Feige knows what we want more than we know what we want, I guess is what I'm saying. So
that's possible. I mean, and I realize that not all fans are on the same track as me, because I'm like, those little moments are enough for me. I mean, I've said the Daredevil crossover that I've wanted is just a random scene where he pops out of Black Widow's room all disheveled and walks away, maybe not even saying a word, and her coming out, you know, just sort of hinting at the two of them having a fling, and then no explanation otherwise. Um, though, but, you know, they've specifically said that's not the type of crossover that they want. And that is definitely the type of crossover that I want.
Yeah, you know, it comes down to what fans consider crossovers and what they're satisfied with. You know, we're sitting here... There's fans out there that aren't going to be satisfied with the biggest crossover. If the whole entire S.H.I.E.L.D. cast showed up in Infinity War, if Black Bolt and Gorgon and Karnak showed up and Medusa choked out Thanos, you know, people still wouldn't be satisfied. So it depends on what the extent of the crossover you're pleased with. I'm kind of in Rhiannon's camp on this much, you know. I think Jed Whedon said something last year about the process where they had some interaction with film. Film gave them, I think, the end goal and said, here's where we're going. Feel free to do whatever to get to that way. You know, we have, I mean, with the events of Winter Soldier, I mean, that was absolutely critical to the show, you know. So, I mean, there's these little things. In the Cloak and Dagger trailer, we got a huge neon Roxxon sign. Now, do you consider that a crossover? Most fans probably aren't even going to make the connection, or it's not going to satisfy them, you know. But I mean, it's those little things that still kind of hold this together as a shared universe, you know. I mean, in the Defenders, I think there's only one reference of the incident, and then we got that Battle of New York poster that used to be in Ben Urich's office. But outside of that, there wasn't any mentions. You know, I don't think anyone said that big green guy or anything like that. So I personally, I'm satisfied with that stuff. You know, I think I've kind of come to the realization that we're not going to see Squirrel Girl and Mr. Immortal from New Warriors in a fight with Thanos and the Black Order. You know, I just think that's not realistic and it's not happening. From a fan standpoint, from my standpoint, I just want them to keep making it seem like a shared universe. There's enough stuff there that I understand that, hey, this is all together. You know, watching the movies, if they reference the incident, you can go on and say, oh, I know what the incident is, you know, without having to show me Steve Rogers walking in the door and saying something, you know. So I understand that. I get fans want to see Power Man and Iron Fist beating up Thanos and all this stuff, but it just won't happen, you know. There's too much work behind it and things like that. So I don't know. I guess I am satisfied with the little details. I don't necessarily want Danny Rand to hop to a movie and be on a movie and have 50 scenes or something of that nature. I don't need that to be satisfied with the MCU. I understand the fans that want that. So I mean, it comes down to preference. I mean, what satisfies your need for crossover? Is it just like Thor: The Dark World, where Thor and Malachi, you know, destroy stuff and S.H.I.E.L.D. swoops in and cleans it up? You know, does that satisfy you, or do you need to see characters, you know, between properties? I don't think I need to see the characters. It would be cool, but I don't think, you know, I don't need that to be satisfied with the MCU. If it's a show and there's enough connective tissue there that it proves it's in the MCU, I think I'll be all right with that. I'd rather have a good show that's somewhat kind of connected than a bad show with just some blatant bad crossover, you know?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I think they've underdone is using side characters. So, like, I don't think Thor should show up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I like that Lady Sif showed up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I think it could be a lot of fun. I mean, I think you could have Agent 13 show up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think if you had, I don't know, in Cloak and Dagger, if they ran into, like, Benjamin Bratt's character from Doctor Strange, or, you know, like a Happy Hogan, like, scene in one of these shows, or I'm trying to think, like, any of the Warriors 3 crossing over in Inhumans. Like, that kind of stuff to me is the stuff should be more doable, particularly, you know, like, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, Darcy showing up in New Warriors, right? That would probably annoy people more than anything. But like, there's like, I just think those are the opportunities you have where you have sort of TV level actors that could show up in a TV show pretty easily. Like, I feel like that's maybe probably something they've underdone. So, all right. I think that'll do that for now. I think we've covered most of the angles with that. We didn't talk much about tone, but tone is always a concern too. Like, I want to see a Daredevil and Spider-Man crossover really bad, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Charlie Cox's Daredevil, like, that would just be kind of weird, right? Like, it would just it'd be hard to fit, I feel. But
I mean, but there was a really dark tone in a lot of that Spider-Man movie. I mean, you take that scene where he's crashed at Coney Island, and yeah, you're not going to see Daredevil out at Coney Island, but that was like dark, and there was a tone of helplessness, and, you know, all is lost. So I could see those two characters meeting up and it being similar tone. Him just landing somewhere, this man in a mask lifting him up and being like, "Take care of yourself, kid," or something like that. And just, I don't know. I'll write it out.
Peter's face to face with the Shocker, and he's like, "I don't want to hurt you." And then Daredevil comes in and like throws him off a rooftop. That's how you take care of him, kid.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump into our mailbag here as we wrap up. Sorry we didn't get the podcast onto YouTube last week. I'll get that eventually. Sorry, YouTubers. I just have not had time to do that. But we've got some different comments from the Twitter and from the website and all those other places. Tried to hit most of them. Cash Craig, right before the show, asked us, why do people freak out about continuity problems when comic books are rife with continuity problems? This is something else we were talking about today. Maybe we'll do another week. But it does seem like people are really crazy about little things that don't match up when comic books are just... it's just like an epidemic in comics, right? That stuff doesn't always work out.
Yeah, I don't know why it's okay in comics and not TV. For me, comics play out over such a long period of time that even when things change, it's like, oh, okay, so this doesn't match up to something that happened 10, 20 years ago. It's a little less, I don't know.
Yeah. I think the flip side is, with comic books, like, you're talking about a handful of writers that I think, at least back in the day, used to like work across the hall from each other. With the MCU, like, this is a stinking ton of people, just the writers of the movies and the TV shows alone. You're talking about dozens and dozens of people that live different places in the country, and, you know, I mean, I might be wrong. Rhiannon, you talked to some of these people. It's not like the writers on Netflix shows are like best buddies with the writer of Guardians with James Gunn, right? Like, they don't necessarily talk all the time on that stuff.
No. I mean, even the Netflix show writers have said that even while they're all in the same building, they are all in LA. I mean, every writer. That's the one thing Hollywood hasn't moved out of LA. The writers all live in LA. They, even though the Netflix folks are all in the same building, they don't even talk to other Netflix. You know, they're just so absorbed in their own worlds. It's not like they all hang out over the water cooler in the morning and like, hey, what are you doing to Luke Cage this week? Well, listen to what we did to Jessica Jones. And, you know, they're thinking about, they really don't have that kind of camaraderie. But, I mean, it is possible if they wanted to.
Yeah. H. Kane on Twitter at Spawn of Oz sent us a 8-part, I believe it was, tweet complaining about we did not talk enough about Luke Cage and Jessica Jones in our Defenders episodes. First of all, H. Kane, thank you for listening. Second of all, Twitter is 128 characters for a reason. We could have got that in one. But I agree with you. I really liked Jessica Jones and Luke Cage's chemistry. I still do. I am forever Team Jessica and Luke, and wish Claire would just get out of the way faster rather than slower. But yeah, I like their chemistry on the show. But I feel like I feel like Netflix is very into Luke and Claire right now and aren't letting us really enjoy the Jessica-Luke relationship like we could. Do you have thoughts on that, Rhiannon?
Jessica and Luke, I mean, no, I don't have feelings on the Jessica-Luke relationship, but as far as Luke and Jessica, he was complaining that we didn't talk about Jessica and Luke enough with Defenders.
Yeah.
It's probably because we had so many complaints, and I don't really have as many complaints with Luke and Jessica. I feel like they were both solid support characters, and that the story really, really, because it was so hand-centric, it leaned towards me thinking about Luke and Matt's stories far more. And that Luke and Jessica were helpful. I mean, they were awesome. They all had, I mean, Jessica's quips and stuff like that, but if we did, it's either if we didn't talk about them, it's probably because so much of everything depended on the hand mythology, and the hand mythology is so buried in Matt and Danny.
Yeah. I think the show talked about Luke and Jessica as little as they possibly could get away with.
Yeah.
Which to me was a disappointment of the show. I thought the scenes were great, but I just feel like the writers did not want to go there with us at all. I feel like they were maybe saving that for what's coming, so we'll see. Fanamir on the website kind of was just talking about Sin Eater being an odd choice for Daredevil, and was even kind of curious about the rights to Sin Eater. There is the possibility that Sin Eater was sent back over to Marvel in one of these mini deals with Sony, and is another sign of more Sony-Marvel cooperation. That's maybe kind of conspiracy theorist. But, I mean, we know, like, with Ego and Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Deadpool, that there was a little deal there between Fox and Marvel. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was a character that Netflix wanted, and Marvel went over to Sony and said, hey, we're not saying anything about this terrible Venom movie you're making, so how about you give us Sin Eater? So, I don't know. That's a possibility. Chris had a lot of comments about Inhumans that were really good, and just kind of reiterated what some of us have talked about, that there was a real confusion with reviewers about whether it was a movie or a TV show, and that confusion, I think, has really hurt the way the show's been received. Mark liked that we asked Emmy about the negative reception, but also asked why we didn't ask Emmy what he meant when he said grounded. That is probably my greatest regret from that interview, as I should have asked him what he meant by grounded. Not to be a jerk, but just, like, he said it, and we all are so tired of hearing it. I would have been interested to hear what he meant, because I think actors mean something different than we hear. I think actors mean it's something that's approachable by human beings. And comic book fans here, there's no superpowers. So, anyway. Last question from the website. I didn't even mark who asked this. So somebody wanted to give us our rankings between Runaways, New Warriors, Cloak and Dagger, and Punisher. The 4 new shows coming out. Which ones are, like, kind of top to bottom? What are you more excited about and less excited about between those 4? Adam, I'll let you go first.
So we rank them 1 to 4, 1 being our most anticipated?
Sure, yeah, we'll do it that way.
Oh man, I'm gonna get hate mail for this one. So number 1, I'm gonna have to say New Warriors. Just because it's a good comic property that I like reading. I am a sucker for really cheesy comedy, and chances are that's going to be exactly what that is. 2, I'll go Cloak and Dagger. 3, I'll do Punisher then. And 4, Runaways. Runaways, I mean, I'm ecstatic that Runaways is getting early praise and stuff. It's just I'm not looking forward to it. Same with Punisher. I've never been a huge Punisher guy. I don't know why. But yeah, I guess I'm just really, really looking forward to the Freeform shows, especially after seeing that Cloak and Dagger teaser a few months back. And it's upon us. It's coming out sometime probably close after the first of the year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to these Freeform shows to see what they can do with it.
So I am number 1, Runaways. I am super excited about Runaways. And then Cloak and Dagger, probably. I don't know. Cloak and Dagger and Punisher are kind of equal to me. Like, I will probably do my 3 a.m. watch for Punisher, but I wouldn't be surprised if I don't, if I watch it more slowly. Though, I mean, crap, I even said that about Defenders, so whatever.
Yeah, I didn't believe that for a second when you said that on Defenders. You're like, I'm going to watch it slower. I was like, no, you're not.
Yeah. I still had like 2.5 episodes to watch when I went to work Friday morning. But I'm just not excited about Punisher. I need more Punisher trailers or something. I need New York Comic Con to get me excited about Punisher. I need something. But Cloak and Dagger, I love New Orleans and the characters seem interesting, so I'm excited about that. Which doesn't mean I'm not excited about Secret Warriors.
New Warriors, even?
New Warriors. Exactly. I make that mistake all the time. Thank you, guys. Which isn't that I'm not excited about New Warriors. I just don't have anything to get me hyped about it yet. I a lot of my hype comes with that first trailer, that first teaser, that first snippet. The only reason I'm as excited about Runaways without that much is that I love the property. So I would say Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, Punisher, New Warriors. And possibly Punisher. Like, don't send me hate mail. Like, Punisher and Cloak and Dagger, I could swap with like 2 seconds of somebody trying to convince me.
So I'm going to say Runaways first. I love that comic book. I feel like it was just a TV show waiting to happen when it was written, and I think it's going to be awesome. I think the cast looks great. I think the little clips we've seen look wonderful. So I think it's great, and I think it's got a good chance to be my favorite TV show of this year from Marvel. So I'm pretty excited about Runaways. Second on my list will be Punisher, just because I think Jon Bernthal is fantastic. And I don't love the character in the comics, but I love Jon Bernthal's version, and I care about him, so I'm excited to see that. Third will be New Warriors, because I hope it'll be very funny. I think some of the people they've cast are pretty funny. And fourth will be Cloak and Dagger for me. I don't care about teenage romances. Teenagers, with the potential of offending our listeners. Teenagers don't know what love is. They don't know what romance is. They're just, little hormone machines running around. And so I'm not really excited about a story about Cloak and Dagger. The whole, like, Romeo and Juliet thing. Romeo and Juliet are a couple of idiots that deserve to die. I'm just not excited really about Cloak and Dagger. So... No, I never understood Romeo and Juliet. People are always crazy about it. I'm like, they're dumb. I don't know. So they just thought a little bit. Like, you know how we watch movies now and people poke at the plot holes? If there had been those people during Shakespeare's day, they'd been like, they did that. Why? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why are they drinking poison? I don't understand. Could we like check a pulse first? Like, what's going on? Anyway, thanks for listening to the podcast. You can interact with our show by tweeting at us at our Twitter handle, which is @MarvelNewsDesk. That's the best way to send us comments for our mailbag. You can also send comments via SoundCloud, which we don't check as much. Cash Craig, thank you for sending comments on SoundCloud. I don't get to them as often, but I know you do a great job on that. You can also leave posts on the MCU Exchange website. If you really want to help out our show, the best thing you can do is send a 5-star review on iTunes. That helps people see it. And the biggest thing that you guys always do is you listen to the show and you tell your friends about it. And that is how we continue to build it. Thanks to Tim Cox for our icon. You can find him on Instagram @TimVCox. And also thanks to Alvin for our theme music. And you can find his music at the Skull School. I think that does it for this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye.